a closed session with counsel on anticipated litigation, one case pursuant to Government Code 549-569-4. There was no action taken. I'm going to move to recognition and presentation. Supervisor Stallman, would you like to take item 2?
Sure, that'd be great. I don't see Joey here tonight. I did get a message from his mother earlier today that he might be one of the first victims of the fall flu season or something like that, perhaps not feeling up to it. But I did have the opportunity to attend his court of honor. No. But he's a gentleman though from Joey's Street that's here for, I think, citizenship and nation here. So anyway, he's not with us tonight, but I want to read this resolution, and then hopefully my colleagues will see to support it. This is a resolution recognizing Eagle Scout Joey Bertel for his outstanding achievements. Whereas the Boy Scouts of America is a values-based organization offering young men the benefits and opportunities rooted in values such as fairness, self-respect, community service, and high standards of conduct since its inception in 1911. And whereas since the first Eagle Scout medal was awarded in 1912, there have been over 83 million Scouts, and only 2% of those have been awarded to Eagle Scout, making it a very prestigious honor. And whereas Joey Bertel joined Boy Scout Troop 355 San Andreas after completing his Cub Scout program, and in time earned his Eagle Scout medal along with the respect and admiration of his leaders and fellow Scouts for his hard work and dedication. And whereas the meeting the requirements for badges earned and completing an Eagle Scout project here in San Andreas, documenting cemetery plots, including photo imaging, be part of an online database for people worldwide to access for historical and genealogical purposes. And whereas Joey Bertel now joins the ranks of an elite group of high-achieving individuals who are also Eagle Scouts, such as President Gerald Ford, astronaut Neil Armstrong, Academy Award-winning film director Steven Spielberg, Secretary of Defense Robert Gates, and New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg, to name a few. Whereas, now therefore let it be resolved, the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors commends, recognizes, and extends commendation of the highest order to Joey Bertel for his outstanding achievements, along with sincere best wishes for success in all his future endeavors. Madam Chair, I make the motion.
A motion by Supervisor Stallman, a second by Supervisor Edson. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So moved. Thank you. Is the Ag Commissioner here? Oh. Mr. Wright, we have the 2012 report of agriculture by the Calaveras County Ag Commissioner.
I wish I'd stand here.
Yeah, that would be nice. Wherever you like. Where would you like to be?
Well, face the audience, I suppose.
Okay.
Kevin Wright, Ag Commissioner. Here's our slideshow up here. Next slide, please. Are you doing it?
No, I guess you were sitting there and doing it.
Okay.
There's a microphone right there.
There you go.
Exactly.
Here comes some. So first of all, you might be interested in what is the crop report. Well, this is the annual report that my office does that's mandated by the Secretary of Agriculture from the state. It reports the conditions, the acreage, the products, and the value of the agriculture products in our county. And then we send the report on to the Secretary of Agriculture. And also we give a report to the Board of Supervisors of Irvine County. It's mandated in law that the Ag Commissioner does this every year. And as such, we do get some money back from the state in the form of gas tax, which helps pay for our survey. Next slide, please. So where do we get the data from for the crop report? It comes from all over the place. We send out a Ag Department questionnaire to all of our producers that we know. It comes from the reports that we get back from the Williamson Act. It comes from the pesticide permit queries and certified producers certifications that we issue. It comes from the USDA National Statistics Service. It comes from the California Department of Food and Agriculture Division of Marketing and Ag Statistics. It comes from personal telephone interviews with producers, industry, and trade organizations. And it comes from our own institutional knowledge and past reports. Good news is that 2012 was a good year for Calaveras County agriculture. The reported value of all our agricultural products in 2012 was $29,655,000, which is an increase of 24.7% over 2011. This figure represents gross production value. It's not the net income from farming operations. It's just their gross money that they receive. Next slide. So here's a slide that shows what's happened from 2003 to 2012, our 10-year comparison for ag production. As you can see, that apex was in 2004 there during the boom years. Then by 2009 we kind of hit the low point there, and since then we've been on a return. And as you can see, between 2011 and 2012, the return for our revenues has increased a little bit quicker than normal. So we're almost back up to the $30 million, but just a little bit below there, 29. Next slide, please. So cattle and timber are the bedrock of Calaveras agriculture. They're the leading commodities, and they usually are. Sometimes grapes will sneak in there, but they're usually a strong three. So, but cattle and timber, as you can see, there's a few more heads this year, 2012. We're always a year behind on these reports. But if you look at that thing, it was 11,600 head, and it's hard to kind of understand what that next one is, 89,000. That's hundredweight. So for every hundredweight, the average price was $116. So for a pound of the animal would be $1.16. If you multiply that out, it comes to 10,300,000 as opposed to the year earlier, it was almost 7,600,000. So in the timber, mostly because the economy improved, and a lot of our timber products get sold here in California. And also they were working in Calaveras County forest lands. So those things combined shows quite a bit of improvement in our timber from, let's say, 4 million to 6 million, over 6. So those were our two large things that drove Calaveras agriculture. Here's the rest of our things. Poultry and grapes run neck and neck pretty much for third place. We have a large turkey farm in the county, and that accounted for most of the poultry. And the grapes, the wine grapes, pretty much close to that, almost 3 million. That is just the pulp of the grapes. It's not split it in a wine bottle. It's just what they get for the grapes at a wholesale price. Working on down, we have walnuts. They had a good year. There's a lot of interest, a lot of people eating walnuts, demand for walnuts is good, the price of walnuts is up. Nursery products, because the vegetables, sheep and lambs, the olives, grain hay, all those things were up somewhat, mostly because the the economy has come back from the death throes that it was in. Here's a comparison between the years. Shows everything was up somewhat. Okay. Now, although we did have a nice increase, there's still plenty of challenges to Calaveras agriculture. First is water. Even though we live in an area where you think we have lots of reservoirs, water is still a limiting factor for agriculture. The wells that are out there may not produce enough. We're in the process of a drought, climate change, and other natural disasters that can occur. What I've seen really is that the water in the wells is the biggest limiting factor to the production for agriculture. Our wells are not that good. For the most part, where they are good, we have outstanding production. For instance, in one of our grape vineyards, the one that has plenty of water, will get 5 tons per acre off the grapes. That particular vineyard actually exports its grapes to Napa, where they're well received. He gets 5 tons. Normally, our normal production in Calaveras County may be 1 ton per acre, with the right amount of water you get. Some other challenges are labor. Farm labor contractors have it's difficult to get people, farm labor contractors, to come up to Calaveras County because they're busy down in the valley. And so they have to, our people who need farm labor have to pay a premium to get up and work up. Also, everything up here is hand carts because a lot of it is on hills, so it requires extra labor. Not just weeds are a problem. The big one now is Medusa head is expanding in our rangeland. And of course, we've always had to deal with these other, not just weeds like yellow star thistle, but those that we already kind of have a handle on and we know how to control it. The Medusa head is kind of new. It has a lot of silicone in the weed itself. It's of no nutritional value to the cows, and so where it is, it just displaces the good forage that we have. We had introduction of insect pests, like green sharpshooter, European grapevine moth, light brown apple moth are all possibles. We don't have any of those right now, but we do check. We have our traps out there, check and make sure that we don't wind up with an infestation of those things. Predatory animals. Mountain lions are concerned to anyone who's raising sheep, cattle, goats. And urban encroachment, really not so much right now, but it's important that we maintain good planning. We have the general plan, and that the leaves and acts stay strong and keeps our rangelands and farmlands safe. Okay. So here's some of the bugs and the weeds that we're concerned with and that we trap for. The gypsy moth, Mediterranean fruit fly, Japanese beetle, fruit fly, like brown apple moth, glycine, I told you that. Some of the weeds that we deal with are the knapweeds, thistles, gorse, stinkwort, and yellow star thistle. Stinkwort is now coming up the roadside. I don't know what kind of agricultural pest it's going to be, but it grows out through the macadam on the sides of the road. So it's one that will definitely be of interest to us and to public works because of its detrimental effects on the condition of the roads. But there's also a lot of opportunities here in Calaveras County. Direct marketing, farmers markets, and local distribution. Our farms are small, so the farmers themselves play a direct role in marketing their product. Not everything has to be sold at wholesale price. value by targeting farmers markets and the local markets. Internet sales have become strong. Farmers or small farmers are able to market their products directly on the internet. They have helped with the Calaveras Grown, which is a group that helps with the marketing promotion and provides strength in numbers to maintain a website. There's a move toward healthy foods. We have grass-fed beef. We have some organic producers. And some of these organic producers are able to actually go into the Bay Area markets and command a higher price for their efforts. Besides this, we have recreational events like the grape stomp. There's weddings, wine tasting, and concerts where growers can add to their revenues by offering recreational opportunities. So I don't have much more to say. Thanks to the producers who provided the data to help us compile a meaningful report. I want to say that the numbers do not take into account the economic benefits the forest and rangeland provide us as tourist attractions and to the rest of the state as a watershed. And the numbers do not adequately demonstrate the dedication, imagination, resourcefulness, and hard work that is required to produce and market a crop, especially here in Calaveras. And thanks to my staff who helped put this crop report together. Thank you all.
Do any members of the public have any questions or comments of Commissioner Wright? Okay, I'd like to move to, thank you, Mr. Wright. I'd like to move to the next item, which are public comments, and you're allowed 5 minutes per person. We will go for 30 minutes. At the end of 30 minutes, if there's still public comment, we will take those at the end of the meeting. I do understand that many of you want to talk, but we have a 30-minute timeline. This meeting is not being held any differently than any of our other meetings. So, you know, Mr. Anderson, if you'd like to keep it short, it would help the students. Thank you. Less than 5 minutes would be appreciated. I mean, I'm just saying it to him because he's a frequent flyer.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Identify yourself.
Tom Casino, Calaveras Planning Coalition. In October of last year, my colleague Carrie Williams and I were invited to lead the Calaveras High School Earth Club on a field trip through the North Road of the Calaveras Big Tree State Park. On that trip, we talked about how redwood forests grow and what we can learn from them. We must have done okay because the Earth Club invited us back to help the club's general plan team learn how to provide input on the general plan update in Calaveras County. In March of this year, the Board of Supervisors held an economic development workshop. You may recall you heard Ethan Smith from the at Earth Club at that time make a presentation during that workshop. In July, as you may recall, the Planning Department invited people to make general plan update issue and policy suggestions. In August of this year, the Earth Club General Plan team submitted general plan issue and policy suggestions in response to that Planning Department invitation. Tonight, thanks to your kind willingness to have a meeting in the evening, some of the Earth Club General Plan team students will be making public comments on the issues of concern to them. I thank you for your attention to them. Of course, you will be free to address these issues at future board meetings on the agenda, either within the context of the general plan update or on their own. In conclusion, I just want to point out to Supervisor Edson and Supervisor Wright that some of these students live in your district, and many of their friends live in your district, and they will be eligible to vote when you are re-elected. So I encourage you to be especially attentive to their presentations. Thank you, and God bless, and I believe the first presentation is going to be on Will Privilege.
My name is Peter Race, gentleman. I'm a people here.
Peter, are you in the midst of the presentation?
I'm sorry, the gentleman left. I don't have 5 minutes, sir. Thank you very much for the information. I'm going to make it quick. In a consent calendar, we're going to be spending $1,164,289.56. While we have all these young folks, you might want to tell them who and how it's going to be paid for. Thank you. Sir, you're up next.
Hello, I'm Olivia Fortune from Savannah, and I'm Sierra Sackville. We are working on saving the Wild and Scenic designation. The Wild and Scenic designation is 37 miles on the Colony River, and it is a designed area that should be kept free of dams that can endanger all wildlife. Even though I have not been to the river yet, learning everything about it makes me want to see the beauty of it. I've also wanted to go kayaking, but I've never got an opportunity to go. So I hope there will still be a future river to share with my kids. I've lived in the Colony Hill my whole life, and I've grown used to the river as a daily setting. Its beauty is something that I notice as I hike or swim along the river. I remember going to Fox Beach with my cousin and family and swinging on the rope swings into the icy water. Even if I don't live here for the rest of my life, I still want the memories to be something that I share with my children. It would be awful to add harmful changes to the river that would damage the beautiful settings. The Colony River is a fundamental setting that should never be ignored. My grandparents and my family go there every year and go to various beaches. Before my grandmother died, her, my mom, and my aunt spent their mother-daughter quality time together. It is so beautiful and tranquil that whenever I go to Mook Hill, that I must make a stop. All rivers and natural habitat are beautiful, serene places that need to be protected against harmful dams. The Colony River offers bountiful experiences for all ages. Rivers are not meant to be controlled, and all dams have that effect. While rivers flow easily and swiftly on its natural course, when dams are put up, all the area upstream is flooded, and all the area downstream gets dried up. This endangers many of the species that makes the Colony River their homes. It also takes away from the play or relaxation area for the humans. Natural transportation would be ceased, making the downstream black and wood, and other necessary debris from the upstream. All together, we want the Wild and Scenic designation to remain a safe, enjoyable habitat for animals and humans alike. Thank you. Hi, my name is Ashley Baker. I will be speaking on the topic of fire safety. My partners are not here, but we started up a group for fire safety because of the need to create regulations because there is lots of burning near schools. One of my partners has asthma and was having to run the track for PE, and there is burning right next to the track a lot of the time. So kids with asthma, that creates it hard to breathe. So, and I'm sure that's a really common thing, so it makes it really hard for students to breathe. So we want to create regulations for when they can burn near schools and how close to schools they can burn. and we haven't gone into research on how close they are currently, but those are definitely regulations that we need to be done. So,
And I'm Javier Arena. We're both in 10th grade.
We're from Calaveras High School, representing the Economic Development Group of Earth Club General Plan.
Economic development to us is of importance of the lives and well-beings of adults and children by improving job rates and road use in the community.
Economic development is important to us because in our future lives, we will need improvement within this county in order to stably live here. Finding a job in the present time appears nearly impossible, and in order to form a stable living environment, we need job opportunities. An example of this is a box store or some sort of business that will provide and excel jobs to support families.
Our community is in need of a support system which will encourage future adults to strive for their education. If there were no support systems in our community, it would be an uneco-friendly environment. If students couldn't afford an education, they would be forced to stay in the community without opportunity of a job, which restricts them from starting a family or any big decisions in their life.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Rachel Berry. This is Delissa. This is Shasta, Hillary, and Shara. And we would like to get like a crisis center or a crisis hotline for mainly school-age kids, but it's mainly focused on teens who are going through things like bullying or abuse at home and just need somebody to talk to, and, especially if they want it to be anonymous or confidential, and they don't want anybody to know who they are.
One of the main things we want to hit is a Facebook comment page because it's on the internet and it's an easy way for teens to get to that. And what this is we will create a page where if there's a kid who someone knows is down or needs some attention or a boost of esteem, they can write anonymously, but they looked good today, or they're pretty, or they're really smart, something just to make them feel better and maybe to stop any kind of suicide problems or anything like that. And then we also want to tackle a website that will just kind of give information about what we want to accomplish, and maybe on that site have an advice page so that if people need advice or need help with something, there's already advice created for them to read, or people who have advice can put it on for other people to see and like read so they know what to do.
We also want to create a hotline where teens can call and get things off their chest and talk to a trusted adult and just have someone there to listen, and it will be kept anonymous and confidential.
What my partner just said is just a small part of what we want to do right now, but in the future, after this is a success, we would really love to see this turn out to be a teen crisis center there in Valley Springs for people. We want to call it safe haven, for it to be a safe place for teens or kids to go, like we said, with bullying or abuse or anything like that. And we want it to be just a place where you can go and you're safe. You know, if you're thinking about suicide or anything like that, you don't need to talk to. This is a place where you can go and you're safe. I mean, and we want to get the transportation, we want to get the cops and different things involved, so people who don't have transportation, they can have a safe place to get there. And this is just a big dream that we have that we plan on. When we, in the future, if we accomplish having the crisis center, we would really like to be connected with other businesses or other businesses in this community, like social services. We would like to be connected with them so we could advise children or teens to them, or even them connected to us so they can advise teens to us where we can help them. And we would like to be connected with Resource Connection and the police and
we would also like eventually to have like fundraisers where we can donate money to Resource Connection or to help the community and the society all together as a whole. This is something we feel really passionately about, so thank you for listening.
It's nice to have trees and fish.
All right. Hi, I'm Courtney.
I'm Michael Calaveras. I'm Victor.
Sorry.
Dr. Nyla.
Gilmer Hernandez.
And we are all from the Calaveras High School Skate Club. What we want is to address the Parks and Recreation area of the general plan. We want to bring a skate park into Calaveras County, preferably Valley Springs. We feel that as teenagers, we don't have a place to hang out and be ourselves in town without getting in trouble. These boys get in trouble for skating around Marvell parking lot. And
I thought I recognized you.
And so we feel that if we were to have this place, we wouldn't get into trouble as much, and it would be a safer environment. Because if these boys get hurt, they could easily have legal issues because they're on public land, and it would be a big legal issue. So, I mean, it's something we really want.
In order for us to even get to a skate park, we have to first find a ride from one of our parents or somebody who can drive us. And the ride is usually just stops and hard to commute even more. And so transportation is always an issue. Trying to commute is an issue. And it'd be really nice to have something like 5 minutes away from the office or a bike ride or something.
And skating in like Marvell area or more, you can get like tickets for like citations and stuff for skating. You don't know that?
But that's another reason why we want to skate park, so we don't have to go on someone else's property just to be able to do our sport and not get in trouble. So we want to be able to go and have a safe place where we don't have to be worried about running in a car or getting trouble by police or something.
We feel really passionately about this, and we know there's that typical teenager stereotype. They're going to go out and do stupid things, get high. We're not those teenagers. We aren't those teenagers who go and do stupid things and who go and do drugs. We're those teenagers that want to have something and to keep it nice. So we would like you to get Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts, concerns, and vision and your dreams. We appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Good job, guys.
And there's over 80 foster youth in this county, and we would like to do a toy and a coat ride for the foster youth. And it's being held November 3rd at Cinders Market, 8th Valley Springs. It's from 12 to 5, and we would like to accept donations of new or unopened toys and jackets to help give a gift to a foster youth in Calaveras County. And if we have leftovers, we would like to help the people that are poor and the kids that don't have Christmas presents. And so we just like to help and, just get out there and help. And if you guys want flyers, I have flyers.
Please don't. Thank you.
My name is Elena Linehan. I'm the manager for the Buffalo Job Training Office here in Calaveras County. I want to make sure that you could share with your constituents that Buffalo Job Training has workforce investment board scholarships available. These are educational scholarships. They're also vocational training scholarships. They're available for all ages, for all the youth that just left here. I'm chasing down the hall and make sure that they know about them. And even to the oldest in the room, I hope you can guess who that one is. But all ages, if you're looking for training or education that ties into the work field, we have scholarships available. These can be applied for at any time of the year. And as you know, we hit a bad snag in the economy not too many years back. We all know someone who has been a strong worker, has an excellent education, that have struggled for work. But it's interesting when you look at the stats, the people who have the bachelor's degrees, their unemployment rates was pretty much typical for the state. It's the folks that haven't had that training or that skill that have really hurt, and it's taken them longer to find work. So you can take that person who has training in one field, but there's no longer a job in that field anymore. We can retrain them for a job in a new field that has a bright outlook and is in demand and jobs in this community. We also can work with someone who wants to get that higher degree. If they've got their GED and want to work towards getting their associates, we can help them with that. So those are available for anyone in the community. We do give priority to veterans. We give priority to families on TANF. There are some priorities, but anyone is welcome to apply. And there are instructions there on how to apply. And we would welcome you sharing with your constituents that there is an opportunity, as the young folks said here, if they had that training, that they could find a job and stay in the area for a job that's viable. We'd like to work with you on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm here tonight to bring awareness to the board and the community the closure of the after-school program at San Andreas Elementary.
Could you identify yourself for the record?
Oh, I will. My name is Susan Smith, and I have been at the after-school program for roughly 10 years. I have been a community member for over 20 years. Basically, my goal tonight was to bring awareness to you and the community that this closure is going to happen on December 20th. We are a fee-based program. We did have a 21st century grant. That was a 5-year grant, and unfortunately, due to cutbacks at federal and state levels, we lost that grant after 5 years. So because of that, that loss money-wise, our program is going to be closing. My goal is to just bring awareness to the fact of the impact that it's going to have on the families in this community. Children are going to be going home alone. We have families that have potentially talked about being out of work. And basically the impact that it's going to have on this community and letting the community know, you guys know, what's going to be happening. We are working hard to brainstorm, look for ways to save this program financially, but we're unfortunately on a very small time schedule here because the December 20th is going to be here before we know it. I want to thank Cliff. He personally came to our Lights On After School program, which was just to have an open house, which is to bring parents in so that they could come brainstorm, come up with different ideas. He also attended our board meeting. Mr. Stallman also attended that meeting, and if somebody else did, and I missed you, I apologize. But basically, like I said, we just want to bring awareness that we are working on, trying to find a funding source to save this program so that families know that their children have a safe place to go when they work in this community. So we're hoping that we can get on the agenda for the next meeting that you guys have, see if we can brainstorm, come up with some ideas to save this program and help the families in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Are there any other public comments?
Hi, Denise Cloward, Colony Hill resident, and I just wanted to reiterate some of the things that teachers have been saying. My son is a second grader, and he currently attends the after-school care program in San Andreas. My two older children were fortunate enough to attend daycare or the after-school care when it was in Colony Hill. They did shut that down due to funding, so we need to start busing my son to San Andreas. And it's been difficult, but it is the only option for affordable, safe, quality after-school care. And I think that's the key point that we need to make is, and next month on the agenda when we come in, Kelly Bresch will come in from the Resource Connection, and she can talk about the lack of licensed home child care that is not available. 25 working parents are going to be affected by the closure of this, and I happen to be one of them. I work in Amador County, and I will be forced to move my son out of the Calaveras School District and into Amador. And I don't think that that should be an option on the table for my last son. And I'm just thoroughly disgusted. I've tried my best to stay calm for Mr. Campbell, so I apologize publicly to Mark. But I understand that it comes down to money, but I don't want to hear anymore that it all comes down to funding. Because the bottom line is if you take 24 working parents and you put them back on public aid, back out of a job, and you take children that are possibly in some negligent situations and not give them anywhere to go after school, we're talking about truancy issues, 5th and 6th graders that are outside on the street by themselves. And of course, if we brought the sheriff in, he would tell you those are the times of the day that all those things that go wrong. So I look forward to coming back with all those parents next month because we need to come up with a solution.
What's the funding for McCollum? How much did that cost?
McCollum Hill does not currently have an after-school
What do you know
program.
how much it was before?
San Andreas.
No, I mean, for McCollum, you know how much money was offering?
I don't. I know the numbers dropped, but just Susan might be able to speak on that a little more.
How much did it cost for San Andreas to offer?
Roughly a year.
36.
It's probably about 68,000.
Okay.
So part of the funds for working parents that we've paid into that, I also want to address. I want to know where those funds go because if they're in a holding pattern and we can make it through January to the end of the 2014 school year with those funds that we've already paid into daycare, I'd like to look into that as well. And like I said, I understand it all comes down to money, but if you do the math on the repercussions of it closing, it makes no sense not to keep it open. So, thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Allison. This is Elizabeth. Isaiah Elias. This is Andres, Caitlin, and Christina. And sorry. We're students at Mountain Oaks, and we're a part of TTO class, which stands for Teen Talents and Opportunities. Our class is geared towards learning about our abilities, being engaged in the community, and just helping ourselves flourish as students in any way possible. And we would just like to thank you for having an open public meeting time during the night, which we are able to attend. It helps us to become engaged in this community.
Yes, and a special thanks to Supervisor Spellman and Edson and Wright for meeting with us prior and enlightening us on those projects.
Separately.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm Linda Mariani from Mountain Oaks, and I just wanted to acknowledgement of how many students, young people, were able to be here tonight because it was in the evening. So I think that part of your goal in engaging in people and having them involved is met with this. So thank you. And again, thank you to Daryl Spellman and Clifford and Chris Wright. And it was very interesting with the discussion afterwards. And I think it was very interesting too because many of them really identified with your concerns and with your goals and your vision. And it gave them a lot of sense of empowerment that there was somebody out here who really had the same concerns. So thank you.
The just staff members and the board of supervisors are also available. Time for report. All right. And close public comment and move to the regular agenda, the consent agenda. Mr. Stoneman. Keep it short, please.
I will.
Thank you.
I just want to publicly thank Mr. Merrill, who's the principal of Calaveras High School, for being here tonight and being in a supportive role that we see these young people in action, exercising the opportunity that many people that have fought hard to. One of the things that this board was concerned with was the ability for people to their right of redress. That's constitutional right. And people that are working or they're at school from 9 to 5, they can certainly take a day off, but that's a little bit arduous. And I just wanted to thank Mr. Merrill. I noticed him in the audience, and I wanted to say thank you. I know that your days are long and very busy, and it gives me a warm feeling to see you here and support, knowing the amount of hours that you put in. And it's certainly, we all of that know you're a dedicated person, and I thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll move to the consent agenda. These items are normally routine and non-controversial, and they will be acted on at one time unless any member of the board, staff, or public would like to pull the consent agenda item. Does any board member wish to pull an item? Does any member of staff wish to pull an item? Any member of the public?
7, 8, and 10.
Pardon?
7, 8, 10.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. May I have a motion on the balance, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the rest of the consent agenda. Second.
Motion by Supervisor Wright, second by Supervisor Edson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Item number 7, please.
Elsa Gallant Taxpayer Association. So it looks like 7 and 8 are related. We're removing $191,000 as an expense and replacing it with $219,000.
That is correct.
For an increase of about $28,000. Is this in the budget, or does this going to require?
This money will be paid by the state of California.
Thank you.
So we are rescinding our contract with TriTech Software, and we are entering into an agreement with AT&T, and the bill will be paid by the state.
Thank you. The other item 10, you want me to continue?
No, let's just do 7 and 8 at the moment.
That was 7 and 8.
Yeah. Okay. May I have a motion on 7 and 8, please?
I'll make a motion. Second.
A motion by Supervisor Edson, a second by Supervisor Wright. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you. Item number 10.
Item number 10, we have a approval of construction service agreement between the County of Calaveras and Peterson Excavation.
Correct.
For the Arnold Rim Trail, and I'm sure that's close to your heart.
Very.
Do you have an indication of what the source of those funds are?
Yes, and that's in the staff report. The source of the funds is federal and state funds for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Peter wants to say something.
I saw.
Peter Race, General Tea Party. Did I say it loud enough? Thank you. I have a quick question on number 10. I've seen this before. What was the total cost for the environmental impact report study? That was talked about it before. It skipped my mind. I'd like to see it. And this amount of money is great for those bicycle rides. I'm sure all the visitors are going to be very happy. I would love to see some of the money go to these kids over here. I don't care if it's a basketball court, baseball court, skateboarding. But I would like to have an answer to how much the environment impact report cost and a bicycle path middle of the forest cost. And I would like to see how it compares to what these kids are asking for.
This money is restricted to transportation enhancement funds. They can only be used for transportation enhancement programs. We've had several of these throughout the year in different parts of the county. It is money that is works through the Calaveras Council of Governments. The county and city put up projects, and they're picked. This one was picked quite a few years ago, and it's now getting into the final. I don't remember what the engineering was, the cost of the engineering. I'd have to ask. I'll ask staff to answer that question. So we could not shift these monies. It's either we use them for transportation enhancement programs or they go somewhere else.
No, it just gives an impression of your values and ideology of what is priority compared to what these kids were talking about. So but I would like to know the cost of the environment impact report.
I can do that. We can do that.
Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome. Deborah, could you just give us the figure for the engineering and environmental?
Deborah Mullen, Public Works. The environmental was $89,000. The design engineering was $45,000. Was the amount allocated for those.
Okay, thank you.
The environmental was actually pretty robust for this project. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, not because of the forest, because of the county neighbors.
And the project we have before us tonight is for the actual construction.
Correct.
Of the project.
And the project will be before the Council of Governments at their next meeting, too, since they hold the funding.
Well, that's connecting to the existing trail.
It will connect. It is between Pine Drive and Oak Circle, paved trail. It's paved, and then there'll be a dirt trail that takes off going up to the Arnold Rim Trail. Pardon? Yes.
It's just another recreational opportunity for the young and the old. With that, I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a motion by Supervisor Ponte, a second by Supervisor Spillman. All in favor? Oh, did you want to make a discussion on this? On a comment? All right. All right, got your time. Good. Thank you.
Just in terms of economic value, Chairwoman Callaway mentioned the funding for this comes from Transportation Enhancement Fund. So basically every time you pump a gallon of gas, part of that taxes goes in to pay for projects like this. Now, I want to give you some personal insight on this one. This is connecting with an already existing trail, which is a part of a larger trail system. This is a very unique trail. In my younger days, I used to do mountain biking quite often. And when I found out about this trail, the existence of it, I went mountain biking. I'm 43. I went with 3 guys that are 23, about 22. I about had a heart attack. But one of the things you'll find in trail systems is that they'll either accommodate hikers or equestrians, but not bicycles. Or they're usually not a mixed scenario. But this is what they call single track for mountain biking. Usually if you go mountain biking, you're on a fire road or something like that, which is just a kind of gravel-based road. This one's what they call single track, where it's only about this wide in a lot of places. So it's very challenging. And I found out about this particular one online through talking with some people. I went online. And there are some organizations that are looking at having some single track mountain bike, you know what I'm saying, like events, because of the rareness of a single track opportunity. I mean, there aren't many places in California anymore where you have single track opportunities where it's very challenging and it's open to mountain biking. So they're talking about some people that are event promoters that want to have events. And of course, those people would stay in Arnold or Murphy's, and they would rent hotel rooms and buy food and et cetera, with their bikes and all the entourage that goes along with that. So I think it's exciting. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Which could help us in the future towards having more opportunities for the kids that are here in the county.
Yeah. Can we, just one last question actually, could skateboarding be construed as transportation, therefore possible money for
skateboard park? Haven't been pretty involved in two skateboard parks, one of which came to fruition at Feeney. It's best to have it on public land, because if you do it private land, it's insurance. On public land, then you sign a note saying if you die doing this, you will not sue government. So that's why you usually see skateboard parks that are on public land, not private land. So if there is any public land in your area, you can work on helping to find, hi Kathy, you can work on helping to find a skateboard park for Valley Springs. I mean, the one at Feeney is used a lot. Okay, I have a motion, I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Okay. I'd like to move to the regular agenda. The next item is, excuse me, adopt a resolution establishing fees for the use of the facilities at Maury at Rasmussen Field. And I'm assuming our airport manager is going to take this.
Good evening. Zachary Ball, Administrative Office. With me is Kathy Zancanel, the airport manager. Just really quick, wanted to say that this is the first time since 2009 that we're coming to the board to increase fees at the airport. And these fees help maintain the airport as an enterprise fund, a self-sustaining fund that does not require the input of general funds to operate. And we have a magnificent airport.
I'll vote for that.
Ms. Zancanella, is there still a fee to go on the waiting list that you instituted?
Actually, excuse me, when we built the 22 new hangars, which incidentally all my hangars are full, I discontinued the wait list because we had everything full. Well, now I've got 3 or 4 people wanting on again, so I will probably reestablish that $10 a year charge to be on it. Is a token that they're really serious, which is the reason we started doing it, because we had a list of 100 people.
I thought it was $25.
No, it's $10 a month, a year rather. No, it's just this.
I'm sorry. That's just a correction. That's $15 a year. Sorry.
Thanks.
Oh,
Thanks.
15
I needed that.
Okay.
Just want to put, because it's in the paperwork, I want to clarify.
Oh, is it? I don't know what it was. Anyway, it's merely a token, and all our hangars are full. The monies that we receive from the hangars are about 1/3 of what it takes us to operate the airport. So we have other funding that.
Are there any questions from the board on this?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I was curious on this counted rate. Do you get a number of your folks prepaying?
Yes.
So that's
Tom Mitchell started us on that. If they pay a quarterly, it cuts down on the bookkeeping and blah, blah, blah. And actually, there are quite a few that do pay quarterly, especially on the larger hangars. But there are a lot that want to be billed monthly, so we do whatever is necessary.
I think
but that was the whole idea behind it,
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the public on this item?
Alice Gallant, Taxpayer Association. I'd like to compliment our our boss of the airport, for not only being an excellent manager, but a great pilot. I've ridden with her and taken pictures of real estate, and she's done a great job. The item on the in the packet shows the fiscal year 2013-2014 expenses at the airport are budgeted at $602,000. The estimated revenue from the revised fees is $201,000.
That's why I mentioned it's only a third of it. We get money from other places too.
Where's the other money come from?
Well, as a matter of fact, we have a cell site out there that, again, Tom Mitchell was instrumental in getting that set up, and we make a very handsome amount of money off of that cell site. We have fuel sales, which are considerable at our airport. State Aeronautics gives us $10,000, and we get the airplane property taxes come into the airport enterprise fund. The monies it takes to operate the airport comes from airport users. It does not come out of tax dollars. It never has. Okay? Yeah, Mr. Spillman.
So if the people house their aircraft at the airport, say I live in San Mateo, but I have my plane in the hangar at Calaveras Airport.
Some people do that. Some people have homes up here, and they choose to keep a hangar because they come up on weekends, whatever, or a week at a time.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily register their airplanes here, although some of them do register them here at Calaveras County.
That was what I was leading into.
Yeah.
Because that would be on the unsecured tax rolls, like boats or different things like that.
No, actually, it's not the unsecured tax roll. It says aircraft taxes. And that comes to about $15,000 or something a year.
Yeah, every nickel counts.
Every little bit counts.
Yeah.
You betcha.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So
And we have
could people put their Learjets in there? We could get some more money.
That would be nice. We have excuse me. At the airport, we have 7 enterprising businesses that employ 20 people. So we're very active out there at this point in time.
That's awesome.
Nothing
Thanks
else?
for doing a great job.
All right, I'll have may I have a motion on this, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Ponte, second by Supervisor Wright. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye opposed? So moved.
And one of the reasons that we are so successful out here, I do have to say, I have had such good cooperation from the supervisors. In this particular case, I don't know all of you like I always have in the past, but the supervisors and all the county functions that I deal with have been very, very supportive of our efforts out there and easy to work with.
That's because it says no general fund money involved.
That may have something to do with it.
I thought it was because we have a
Thank
great
you all
manager.
for your help.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guess the other side. Yes.
I'd like to move to the next item. It's a presentation on county financing and revenue enhanced options. Ms. Norton, did you want to take the lead on this? Or?
Certainly, and Zachariah is going to get set up, and Rebecca Counts, Auditor Controller, is going to join us. And I would invite all of the board members to participate in this. I'm going to present, but this would be a perfect time for dialogue about revenues. We're using this as an opportunity to educate the county or the community about how the county is financed and the board members. And again, please stop us during the the presentation, ask any questions that you have, and between Rebecca, Zachariah, and I, and our County Counsel Janice, who's going to play a part in this also, will happily address those questions.
Thank you.
So this issue of revenues actually came up as we were preparing both the recommended and the final budget. The board indicated a desire to discuss revenues in addition to expenses. We spend a lot of time talking about expenses. I'm seeing if I'm on here, Zachariah, or if you're going to, there we go. And so the board expressed a desire to talk about how the county is financed and what areas of opportunity we might look at to expand our revenues, as we are also looking at the possibility of having to reduce our expenses. So that's what this is. It's Revenue 101, essentially. So these are the county's financing sources. And just by way of background, as an arm of the state, the county financing sources and the way we categorize them are all actually dictated to us by the state, by state law. And the State Controller's Office prescribes a uniform way of accounting for revenues and provides guidance for how all counties have to account for their revenues. That's partially to be able to make comparisons county to county. It's for auditing purposes. And so the system that we're going to describe for you is not something that is created within our county. It's standardized across the state and across all counties. Just in general, so that the public and the board understands, although many of these revenue sources are similar to city revenue sources, for instance, counties have far more restrictions on both how they generate funds and how they use funds. As an arm of the state, we are subject to state regulations that cities may not be subject to. There's also a difference between charter counties and charter cities and charter counties, and Janice is going to go into that a little bit as we conclude this presentation and talk about what that means to us. We are a general law county, and as a general law county, the state prescribes how we account for revenues, how we can spend revenues, and I do want to make sure that the board is aware that we annually have an audit that we are subject to.
Which we are going through right now. And so it's through a participation with my office as well as all of the departments that we do not only our overall county financial audit, but it's also the single audit, which is required if you receive $500,000 or more of federal funding, which we do. And it's that single audit that keeps us on top of getting future federal funding.
And I would just say there's been some discussion about maybe some higher level of audit and an interest in that. I think both the auditor and I would welcome that if that is the desire of the board to engage in that at some point in time. We would welcome that. I think that we are highly regulated, we are audited, but again, if the board has the desire to have some deeper level of conversation about that, we would welcome that opportunity.
In terms of audits, not only do we go through an annual audit, that independent auditor is actually contracted with the grand jury. So it's the grand jury that makes the selection on the countywide independent auditor. That has, what we felt was best was we had an independent auditor for something like 10 or 12 years. So a few years ago, actually it was 2 years ago, we made a change to another firm just because you want to get a new set of eyes and you just want to get out of the monotony of doing the same thing over and over and over again. So we did do that a couple years ago. And that was a good thing. I look at auditing. We also have a lot of our grants are audited by the granting agency. The State Controller's Office actually comes in and does audits. Not only will they do an audit on the road fund dollars, for instance, they will also do an audit on our property tax process and system. They'll also do an audit of our indirect cost plan, our 87 plan. So there is a multitude of different kind of diagonal ways of looking at everything that we do. And another audit that we have not had, but there's always the possibility, is forensic auditing. And forensic auditing is more to address if we believe there's some sort of criminal fraud or some sort of, it doesn't necessarily have to be criminal, but generally a forensic audit would be for fraud. So generally, if we felt something like that was happening or someone felt like something that was happening, it generally goes through the law enforcement agency. It'll be contracted with a forensic auditor. So there's a different multitude of audits that can be done. But we do get audited. We also did just receive the state controller's reporting award for the last year, and we have consistently met the excellence in reporting for our comprehensive annual financial review.
Very good. Kudos, and maybe we can just do a session on all the various audits we have. I mean,
Yeah.
I know you just did a drive-by, but
I know.
do one more detail.
I know a way we could save a little money. Turn down the heater. That would be good.
No kidding.
We're trying.
Usually it's cold in here at night. Okay.
So this is a snapshot, countywide, all fund financing. So we generally focus, and in this presentation too, we're going to move quickly to the general fund because that's the area where the board has the most discretion. But this is just to show you how our county budget in total this year, which is the figure, the figure at the bottom there, the 103,553, is financed. Taxes, almost 15%, $15 million. And that, of course, is property tax, sales tax, TOT, licenses, permits, franchises. In that category, we account for things like business licenses, construction permits, road permits, animal licenses, zoning permits, franchise fees, cable franchise fees. Fines, forfeitures, and penalties, exactly what it says. Generally vehicle code fines, penalties on delinquent taxes. The next category, use of money and property, very small category there. That's a result of the very low interest rates at the moment. That's really interest and rents on county properties. Intergovernmental, in the county-wide, a huge percentage of our budget, 43.4%. That is state and federal funds that come to us to support our health and human services operations. It's state aviation monies that we were just talking about with Kathy. It's highway users. It's motor vehicle in lieu. But the biggies there really are the state and federal public assistance programs and administration. Charges for services are things like our planning and engineering services, where people come in and pay for services. They are animal adoption fees. They're just
the law enforcement service contracts that the sheriff's department.
So when we contract with Comanche, for instance, that's where those revenues are accounted for. Miscellaneous is a kind of a catch-all category. Other sales, I believe that's where tobacco settlement dollars are come into, and other financing and transfers. That would be where if we sold capital assets, it would go. Transfers in, like AB 109. We actually receive that money into fund and then transfer that money out to probation, out to the sheriff, out to the district attorney, those departments that actually spend it and utilize those resources. And then at the bottom is the use of teeter, which we've discussed, and use of prior year fund balances. And you'll see that that's about double the amount that we're using in the general fund. So other funds throughout the county also rely on use of fund balance. They have carryover from prior years, had planned expenditures in prior years that didn't occur, and when that money is available to them, then we'll use that the next year to help balance their budget.
So that's general fund and non-general fund.
Right. This whole chart is all fund financing, so it's all funds throughout the county. And this is just what that looks like pictorially. Again, you'll see the largest component is intergovernmental revenues when you look at the big picture countywide. If it would be easier for you to see without the lights on, that's just fine.
A little bit. Not super difficult, though.
Is that good for the audience?
Fall asleep.
I won't take it personally. Moving on now to the general fund, because this is where we focus. This is the area where the board has the most discretion. This is the area where we currently have an issue that we need to address. So this is a comparison of fiscal year 12-13 actual to fiscal year 13-14 budget. And we use 12-13 actual because we budgeted appropriated funds in 12-13. All of those funds weren't spent, obviously, so we rebudgeted some of those dollars. So this is really the most accurate comparison. This is how revenues came in last year, what we actually received, and what we're projecting to receive as we go forward into 13-14. And you will notice in most categories and in the subtotal, it's flat. Our anticipated increase in overall revenues is about 1%. Taxes, we're anticipating minor bump ups in property tax and sales tax, minor 3%. The bulk of our revenues, we do not anticipate major or significant changes in. Does anyone have any questions or comments about that, or anything that you perceive differently that we go through a rigorous process of trying to look at and project forward?
I would just say what's important to understand in the budget process is that departments, my office or administration doesn't go off into a silo and decide how much revenue we're going to get. It's a real collaborative process that we do with departments because departments understand their budgets from an operational standpoint, theoretically much better than the rest of us would. They are living and breathing in it on a daily basis. So we rely on that information from them. We validate it and we fact check that if they say they're going to get a grant, that we're going to get that grant. Or if they know from whatever organization that, every department type of business department is affiliated with like a membership. The board had kind of talked about why do we have so many memberships? How come everybody is involved paying a group of some sort? Part of that is because we get very good insider information on what's happening legislatively, especially with budget coming from the state or the federal government. So we rely on kind of those feeds of information to those departments to help us establish what these revenues are going to be, especially intergovernmental, because we have absolutely no control on intergovernmental. So if one of those feeder groups is relaying information to a business unit to say, we believe that there's going to be a growth component this year, we believe that the legislation is going to go this way instead of that way, we rely on a lot of that information. Because what happened last year may not necessarily be what's going to happen this year. So we rely really closely with the departments to get that information and be really accurate with it.
That's a good point.
Can I mention the amount of hours that were talked about earlier today in terms of a cost-saving measure for mutual participation for legal funds?
San Diego assisting with the...
in very general terms.
Yeah, in general terms, just in amount of hours approximately.
Yes.
Did you want to speak to that?
County Council belongs to a subsection of the CSAC, it's County Council Association, and we have both a website and we also email each other and phone calls, and there's an executive director that sort of accommodates different counties' needs. And when counties are facing the same issues, we try to get together and not reinvent the wheel. And when a larger county is facing the same issue as Calaveras County, we obviously like to take advantage of whatever whatever they can provide us, because they usually have about 100 more attorneys than we do in our office. But yes, we have been involved in an issue and have been using quite a bit of time from San Diego County Council, and the estimate you're referring to is saved about 40 hours of time in my office as a result of their research.
And that would equate to approximately...
Weighted average salary, I'd say it's probably about... We're pretty cheap compared to outside counsel. We're probably about $80 an hour as opposed to $300 an hour.
Are you lobbying us?
No, I'm telling you that you get a good deal out of our office. So it's probably about $4,000 or $5,000 of taxpayers' money.
This week.
Just this week
alone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And how much does it cost to belong to the organizations for your office?
For me, it's a little over $3,000 a year.
So just to connect a couple of dots on this chart, charges for services, the big difference here, just so you know, is the drop in A87 charges. This is actually where those interdepartmental charges to one another go, and the way that we're actually taking care of that significant reduction in revenue, about $1.1 million, is we're using some prior fund balance and use of teeter to actually make up that difference. So you'll see, whereas our outside revenues that are our annual ongoing revenues are remaining very flat, we've actually had to supplement those revenues with use of one-time fund, as we've discussed, to make this budget work for this year, because our revenues are staying flat and our expenses are growing. The other change here in other financing sources, which is relatively large, is as a result of additional AB 109 dollars coming in this year. So again, this is how our general fund looks pictorially. The largest part of general fund financing is taxes, and that really is property tax and sales tax, and we'll go through that just so you understand that in more detail. So this is our general fund tax revenue breakdown. You can see that the largest share, the blue part of those bars, property tax. The next largest share, sales tax. Above that, TOT, property tax, transfer tax, and other. And the combination of TOT, property transfer tax, and other is so insignificant that we're going to spend most of our time talking about property tax and sales tax. So property taxes, as we've discussed in prior meetings, have significantly decreased. We hit our high in fiscal year 08-09, 13.3. This year we're down to, or we are projecting for this year, about $9.5 million in property taxes. Our actual property taxes for 12-13 ended up being 9.4, so we're anticipating just a slight bump up in property taxes. You probably are aware of this, but again, for the public, the primary factors that affect property tax growth and decline, generally it's based on recent property sales. In historic times, property sales generally meant you're going to be getting more property tax for property. At the point in time we're at now, often sales are lower than the current property tax value, so they may actually result in a decline in value when a property is sold. It depends on how long the property has been in the ownership of that individual, but recent sales often are lower than the prior owner.
Lori, is this net to the county?
This is what the county receives.
18 cents. Okay.
That is correct. This is what the county receives. Newly built property and property improvements, we like to see those because, of course, improvements are assessed based on the current market value when the improvement is completed. So that can actually have a positive effect on our property tax. And I am understanding from our county departments that they're actually seeing an increase in, again, improvements and additions. Not a lot of new homes being developed, but people are actually investing in their existing homes. One of the largest contributors to the significant drop in property tax in this county, of course, is our decline in value status. We have approximately 17,000 of our 45,000 properties that are in a decline in value status. Many of those have been in a decline in value status since fiscal year 09-10. My understanding from talking to the assessor's office that some are now coming out, but others are going in. So unlike some counties and some other areas where property tax values are actually going up, and you've probably seen the press releases around the state, assessors are warning folks that they're going to be seeing significant increases in their property tax. We're just not there yet. Hope we get there. We will get there soon, but we just are not there yet. Property taxing authority and limitations. I think most of you know that, property tax is administered by counties, but we don't control the rate of property tax. We can't impose a new tax or increase the tax. It's established by Prop 13. In normal circumstances, the annual property value can increase up a maximum of 2% a year. When properties change hands, the assessed value becomes the new price paid for that property. And of course, again, now we're in a situation where often the price paid is less than the last owner. As we discussed with the last slide, property improvements are assessed at market value. And again, just the result in our county, a significant result of properties being in a decline status.
The one thing is that all the properties that are in decline status, they are not restricted to the 2% per year. So that's why assessors around the state are making sure that they're letting those property owners know that if they reduce their properties significantly and then the market starts going up, they're going to have a much higher increase than 2%. So it was just kind of a beware to the property owners.
In that light, just so you know, we're actually, thank Kathy for coming with one of the first fee increases, and it went relatively well. We're talking to departments about looking at fees and proposing new fees where they're appropriate, and we may be coming to you asking you to consider a fee for assessment appeals hearings. Most counties do charge a fee for that. Ultimately, we've sort of been through this process where we've had many people requesting assessment appeals because they thought we were overvaluing their property. Once the market does start coming out, there are going to be many more people coming to us thinking that we are increasing their value too quickly and ahead of the market. So that, just as Rebecca has said, I think people are often shocked. They believe that Prop 13 restricts our ability to increase property taxes up to only 2% a year. That's not true when they're in a decline in value status. So we could have some unhappy constituents when the market starts coming back. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Calaveras County's property tax distribution. For every dollar of property taxes that we collect, 18 cents comes to the County of Calaveras. Special districts throughout the county, that's fire districts, water districts, cemetery districts, anyone that gets a property tax, collect 14 cents of that dollar, 67 cents go to the schools, and a cent goes to Angels Camp, and of course that's only property that's located within Angels Camp. They only get property tax for properties located within their area. State law directs how this revenue is allocated, how the 1% is allocated. The county auditor is responsible for allocating it, but again, she doesn't decide how it is allocated. And the way that it is allocated is very inequitable, I will just say. It's based on AB 8, which is a bill that passed in the 80s and is really based upon historical property tax collection from the 1970s. So there are some counties, Alpine County gets 64 cents of every property tax dollar collected. Orange County gets 11 cents of every property tax dollar collected. And this is in total. There are many tax rate areas, and it varies by tax rate area. But in total, Tuolumne County gets 26 cents. Amador gets 33. We get 18. And this is not something that we can change. This is something that, again, was based upon historical practice. Prior to Prop 13, county boards developed their budget every year and then decided how much property tax they needed to support that budget and set a rate. We have historically had very low property tax rates. That then became our set rate going forward. So when we compare ourselves to Amador, Tuolumne, others, you know, sometimes it's apples and apples and sometimes it's not. They have more properties and they get to retain more
But
of their
there's nothing
property
that can be done
tax
at this
dollars.
point. That's a set in stone.
It is
Yes, which can be very frustrating for some of the smaller districts, that it's almost not worth them even getting the property taxes they're getting because it's so unbelievably low. But they do come to my office and ask if there's anything that we can do so that they can get taxes. And the reality is, it's one pie. So I guess if they could get everybody who's in the pie to agree to give up a portion of their revenue, then yeah, they could. But I don't think anyone is going to raise their hand for that.
So this is how that translates. Medium home value, Calaveras County, and this is from the local realty group, April of this year, $198,000. So 1% of the value, $1,980 is the total property tax on that. The county's 18% share, we get $356. So, and that's the money we get to provide roads for people, to provide sheriff's deputies on the streets for people, to fund all of those programs that we try to provide to benefit our community. $356 a year. Now it can increase by 2% up to, or the value can increase by up to 2% a year, which increases that property tax incrementally, but it's clearly not enough, and is one of the reasons you will hear us say to you, there has to be a mix of development. We need sales tax generators, we need commercial, we need a mix of development, because residential costs really more than it pays towards the services that those folks use. Moving on to sales and use tax.
Good idea.
Sales and use tax. Again, substantial decline, but we're coming back up. We have not yet hit the high that we reached in 06-07, but you do see that there's a bump up between 12-13 and 13-14, and we're hoping that that bump continues. Won't name the business, but I'm thrilled to see some businesses expanding. When I think about economic development, it's great to try to attract new businesses, but the first principle in my mind is to retain and help the businesses that are already here expand and stay here successfully. So I know we have a new business that has expanded down into Valley Springs, and I'm hoping that everyone shops locally because of that sales tax dollars in Calaveras County, we directly benefit. So again, sales and use tax, it's collected at the point of sale. That's why it's called situs-based. 1% is allocated by the state to local governments where the sale occurs. So if you shop here, 1% stays here. 75% of that goes to the general fund. 25% of that goes to the COG. We get portions back of the other sales tax that goes to the state, but that's formulaic. We don't get back the amount that's collected here. There is state legislation that allows counties to seek voter approval of a local transaction and use tax, and we'll talk about that as one of the opportunities we might want to exploit. So looking at this is how the state sales tax is divided. I'm not going to walk you through it, but you can see, jumping ahead there. this is the 1% that actually, when you spend, me in our county, this is what comes back directly to our county. And again, 75% goes to county general fund, 25% goes to COG to help pay for road improvements. So when you spend $100 in our county, $7.50 of that is what is collected in sales tax. The county gets back $1 of that. The rest goes to the state. And again, some of that comes back, Prop 172, public safety funding, but it's formulaic. We don't get back everything that's collected in our county. Similarly, Health and Human Services realignment, it's sales tax based, so you'll hear that as sales tax increases, we're thinking we're going to get additional realignment dollars. That's how it works.
So, is it given back based on what's collected here, or it goes into the pot and back on population?
So the 1% is situs-based, so we get 1% of what is of the sales tax collected in our county. The rest of it goes into a pot at the state, and it is distributed. There are different formulas for different pots. Some of it is population-based. There are complex formulas for all of the others, so we do not necessarily get back the amount that is collected in our county.
But I'd like to say that every dollar we spend out of our county is gone. So
shop local.
If you shop local, for every dollar that you spend here, 74% of that is recirculated back in our county. Not necessarily as revenue for the county, but it comes back stays in the county. 74% of that money does. So it's really important to make sure that we make the right decisions when we're shopping local.
Transient occupancy tax. This is our local TOT. Remained relatively stable even through the recession, which is great. We're anticipating a little bit of a bump up in this current fiscal year, up from 327 to 375, and that's in thousands, so that's 375,000. We'll talk a little bit more about that too, because that's also an opportunity. Currently, the TOT, as you all know, is divided. A third goes to the Visitors Bureau, a third goes to roads, and a third goes to the general fund.
When you say general fund, that really is sheriff's, right?
No, it's a general fund, and the board gets to decide how to allocate it.
Oh, really?
With the whole pot, just the whole general fund.
Actually, just let me clarify. This is a general tax. The board gets to decide every year how to spend this money. But it has historically been allocated that one-third.
That's a good point. So, right now, Calaveras' rate of transient occupancy tax is 6%. Angels Camp is at 10%. This is an opportunity. This is something the board could decide to do, to go out and look at increasing TOT. Every 1% increase in TOT would generate $59,000 a year at the current rate that we're realizing it. I do understand that we've tried 2 times previously in 1998 and 2004.
3 times.
3 times? I was told 2.
I remember 2 during the time I've been here. Maybe there was one before that.
Yeah, the last one was Paul Stein and Steve Kaltz were leading the charge.
So I think these 2 actually made it to a ballot and were defeated.
Yes.
Yeah. But that is an opportunity. Clearly, Angels Camp was successful in increasing their rate of TOT. Intergovernmental revenues, although it's a significant piece of the pie, there's very little ability of the board to influence or increase this revenue. It's primarily comprised of VLF funds, Prop 172 dollars, property tax in lieu. We do have some ability to influence grants, and I think the Sheriff's Department has done a great job of looking at new grant opportunities. So some limited ability, but in most cases this is beyond our control. We have to rely on others to allocate those resources to us. Charges for services, again, this is something that's within the board's control. About 2.4 of the 4.79 that we're anticipating for 13-14 is 87 charges. The rest is all other county permits, fees, etc. Realistically, and we are encouraging departments to look at their fees and come to the board with fee increases. But even if we were to raise every county fee, and we're not going to do that, if we're going to raise it by 3%, it might raise $70,000, 5%, $120,000. So this is not a significant revenue generating opportunity. When we talk about fee increases, my perspective is we're trying to set those fees to recover as much of the cost of providing those services as the board is comfortable in doing. As we've discussed, if someone comes to our counter and we charge them a fee and we don't charge them the full cost of the service that we're providing for that individual, the rest of the county is subsidizing it. We may want the rest of the county to subsidize it. It may be an economic development opportunity. There may be some greater good that's served through that purpose. But I've asked departments to think about and strategically come to the board with those instances where it does appear that we should be trying to achieve closer to full cost recovery on fees. And I know that many of them are contemplating which fees to come forward with, and we'll be doing that. Rebecca, Zachariah, anything to add? Okay. So now we're going to skip to a discussion about the opportunities that we do see. Talked a little bit about county transactions and use taxes. The legislature has actually provided a mechanism whereby counties can seek voter approval for a local tax. We've never done that in this county, but it is an option that's available to us. There are 39 counties or special districts with rates that have been successful in passing a local county transaction and use tax. Inyo, Santa Clara, San Mateo all have general purpose taxes, which means that the voters have determined to impose a tax upon themselves and have left it up to the Board of Supervisors to decide how to allocate those taxes. In most cases, the taxes that are passed are for specific uses. So 30 of the counties have increased taxes for transportation or transit. Roads is a big issue for people, and they're often willing to tax themselves to pay for roads. 6 counties have taxes for libraries, 2 for hospitals. Napa has a half-cent for flood control that the voters actually agreed to extend last year, and the extension is going to be for streets and roads after June of 2018. Sonoma and Marin each have a quarter-cent transaction use tax that goes towards preservation of ag and open space. San Francisco has a 0.25% rate for schools and community colleges, and Fresno has a zoo tax. The common theme throughout that is most of the taxes that have been approved are for infrastructure or for a specific use. Again, only 3 counties have been successful in passing one for general purposes. And general purposes is operations. It's, the sheriff deputies out on the streets. It's the operation of the library as opposed to the library building.
I want to add that Denver County has a half-cent sales tax, point of use tax. It's used for fire protection and emergency medical services, but our neighbors do have that tax.
Amador had a tax, maybe it was a fee. Are you listening, Mr. Segal? And that's how they funded their administration building?
I believe that was a bond.
No, but they paid for it. I can't remember. I thought it was, I know what it was. It was similar to like the rim fee. You go in and get your building permit, and there was X amount added, wasn't it?
A facilities fee?
A facilities fee. And that's what Amador had, yeah.
That's the next page.
We're going to talk about the development impact fees. Yes. Well, that's good. We're getting there. And thank you. You're right. Amador has a fee for EMS and fire, and Tuolumne does not have, but Sonora actually has an added transaction and use tax. I think that's on the next slide. Yeah, so the base sales tax rate throughout the state is 7.5, and that's what it is in Calaveras County. So Amador's is 8%. They've got a 0.5 for fire and EMS. Tuolumne, the unincorporated area, is set at 7.5, but the city of Sonora has an 8%. We have never placed a local transaction use tax measure on the ballot. For each 0.5% increase, it would generate about $1 million. That's pretty significant. General tax requires a majority vote, but again, remember, only 3 counties out of the 58 have been successful in passing a general tax. The vast majority of added taxes are special taxes, and that requires a 2/3 vote. So development impact fees, and this is probably, Marita, as you've said, what they use in Amador. So we do have the ability to impose development impact fees. We already have one. It's the RIM fee. It's commonly used to pay, again, for improvements and facilities that are necessary to serve new development. The ordinance establishing the fee has to explain the connection between the development projects and the fee can't exceed the cost of paying for those projects. Our ability to do this is actually derived under a special statute that allows us to do this. It is an option that would be available to the county. I think it's probably an option that we would look at exercising once we have a general plan in place and have identified what the impacts of the general plan development would result in, so what we would be assessing the fee for. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment, and it was a question and comment for somebody to look into since we're on the topic of it. And in 2010, when I was running for office, I don't know if Captain Macedo was there, but the gentleman that I was running against, who was the incumbent at the time, we met in this very chamber, and it was the Deputy Sheriff's Association. It was a closed candidate forum for DSA members. And the question they posed was, they were expecting to lose $500,000 in the next fiscal year for lost DLF funds, and they wanted to know what we as candidates had in terms of any ideas on how to replace that shortfall. My predecessor said that there was a developer impact fee that was inked in this county 10 years prior, so that would have been 1990?
No.
But he said it had never been enacted.
No, what we have...
The board had passed one, but nobody had ever implemented it.
What we have is we have an ordinance in our county code. There's an ordinance that authorizes us to adopt a development impact fee. To adopt development impact fee, you have to comply with the Mitigation Fee Act, which we did when we adopted the RIM fee, which requires you to do a nexus study and make all of these different findings. So what he was referring to is the ordinance that says, it actually, as I recall, has language in there about a facilities fee and other fees. And a facilities fee is something the county was looking at that time period. It's never been adopted by the county. But the authority to do that is in our ordinance.
So they passed the ordinance giving the authority to do so,
yes,
but they never delineated
which they didn't
specifically.
have to do. That ordinance is not necessary because the statute allows you to do it.
Yeah.
It's been in there for a long time.
That's what I thought. But anyway, I mean, because the problem I have with the RIM fee is, I mean, I understand the reasoning for it. However, it doesn't specifically address, I mean, I'm sure they collected a whole pot of gold for RIM fees on the expansion of the retail area down in Valley Springs for the new Taco Bell and Subway and all that kind of stuff. And they didn't do jack diddly in terms of producing better traffic flow out of that supermarket area. In fact, it's pretty pathetic. I mean, I'm hoping that it'll be addressed in the washout of the 1226 interchange expansion there. I hope that some of that will be addressed. But that's the issue I have, is that they put these rim fees on Taco Bell and whoever's coming in, and then they use it to build roads in other part of the county. I know it's legal. I know that it's legal, but it doesn't set well with my constituents for sure that are impacted by that. So if there's an ability to do a development impact fee, such as, I know they have in other areas, so if you're doing residential development, then there needs to be money that's collected to build firehouses, to build schools, other things like that. So.
Thank you.
And there is that ability, and again, I think the opportunity for us to look at that will be once the general plan is complete, once we know where development is going to occur and what those needs are. I think it would be the time for us to identify the infrastructure needs that follow from that and discuss other development impact fees. There is also at the very bottom of the slide there, I've got big fingers today, the very bottom of the slide here, there are additional powers that arise just from the Public Health, Safety, Welfare Code and the Constitution that some would interpret could allow the board to do development impact fees for things like law enforcement operations. Cities have used that. I could not find any instance in California where a county has exercised that, other than, again, the 3 counties that have been successful in passing general taxes that then the board may use to fund law enforcement or those types of services. So just quickly, again, in summary, we do have some revenue opportunities. If the board were to direct staff to start thinking about planning for a transaction and use tax, by increasing or setting that at 0.5, we could generate $1 million annually. It would require voter approval. TOT similarly, we could look at increasing that up to the same level as Angels Camp from 6% to 10%. By increasing it those 4 percentage points, we would likely generate $200,000 a year. Again, voter approval required. Development impact fees don't require voter approval, but I think that we're a ways away from a place where we could actually identify the infrastructure needs that we could use to support an increase in development impact fees. We have some other revenue generating opportunities. Many of these have been brought to us by departments that have suggested that these might be ways that we could look at increasing our revenues, and I'm grateful for departments for providing these, and I think have challenged them to keep thinking about this and come up with other opportunities. You can see them listed there. Some of these we're already working on. The sheriff has, again, done a great job of looking at ways to contract some of their services with other neighboring entities or with the state to generate some resources. We can look at other opportunities to rent space, regionalize services, convert some of our old facilities to other uses. Sale of surplus property, that's a one-time revenue, and I don't know that this is the right time with depressed values, but that's clearly an option. And with that, I am going to turn it over to County Counsel, who's going to talk about some of the limitations in our scope of authority.
Right. I'm going to give you just a snapshot of the law, because obviously the law takes up, as you see, multiple volumes in my conference room, and that would take days. And it's late. But what I tried to do was, as the board moves forward with revenue generation and economic development, was sort of define for you what you can do. And also there's been some great ideas presented during public comment about some ideas. And to the extent that we can't do those, I wanted to explain for you and the public why. And some of this is a little bit repetitive, but basically, as Lori noted, we are a general county. We are not a charter county. Our scope of authority comes from the Constitution and anything that the legislature enacts in the state, and to some extent case law that the courts interpret those statutes in our favor. We are a political subdivision of the state, We are not separate from the state, and we don't have any authority to act unless there's a law that authorizes the county to act. So we really are a creature of the legislature. The Constitution does authorize counties to regulate by charter, which is basically known as home rule, and there are some charter counties. They can adopt laws that supersede the state laws that we have to follow as long as they don't add any requirements to the state law. Or there's a concept called occupation or preemption of the law, and that is a legal concept where the state has legislated to the extent where counties and cities are not allowed to do anything other than what the state has said. Charters are adopted by the voters. As we go along in these hard economic times, you'll see, and we're not going to talk about that tonight, but some of the advantages to being a charter are being eroded by the legislature already. There's a recent change to prevailing wage that charter cities were exempt from, and they no longer are. So the state controls a lot. When we do anything, we cannot conflict with state law. So one of the things that comes up occasionally is, why do we have to comply with state law? For example, CEQA or NEPA. And there is a California Supreme Court case that says that local officials must comply with state law even if they believe the law is unconstitutional, because only a court is authorized to find a state law unconstitutional. That case in particular is the one where Mayor Newsom decided to issue marriage licenses during to gay couples because he felt that Prop 8 was unconstitutional, and that went up to the Supreme Court, and they said if a local official or, for example, a county board didn't believe that a law was constitutional and decided to ignore it, there would be no rule at all. We would have chaos throughout the state of California. So unfortunately, local officials have to comply with state law until there is a final court ruling that says it is unconstitutional. We're stuck, basically. So some of the things that you can do that you have authority over are the assets that the county controls. And the county does control real property. If the county makes a decision that the property is not surplus and want to keep it and do something with it, there are basically 4 ways that they can go forward with that idea. They can also surplus it and sell it. You have to advertise and take bids and sell it to the highest seller. But if you want to keep it, there are several ways to do it. Most of them, unless you're going to go into business with whoever you're going to have operate the facility, require a notice and a public auction to the highest bidder. So the county doesn't have the authority like a real estate agent to go out there and say, you know, we want to lease this property, we like you, we're going to lease it to you. We have to follow one of these procedures. The first one is just to publish notice, public auction to the highest bidder. The second one is you can lease county property up to 99 years with a 2/3 board vote, but you have to have sealed proposals and awarded bids, similar to what Public Works has to do on Public Works contracts. You can also do, this is an interesting concept, joint occupancy with a private entity for a period not to exceed 66 years. I like all the different time limits that the state has given us.
Why 66?
You have to do RFPs. And the county retains title, so even though you're doing joint occupancy, the county retains title. You can also do a joint venture, which is slightly different from joint occupancy, because now you don't actually have to use the building. You're just entering into a business relationship with a private entity. And again, you have to do a notice public hearing, you have to actually adopt ordinance, and there are certain findings in competitive bidding. Some county property is exempt from all of those requirements and has completely different requirements. As you saw today, the airport. The airport, you are allowed to lease to a private entity, such as the hangars, upon a 4/5 vote of the board. That's a very general statement of what you're allowed to do with county property that's used in those those are the listed statutory uses in that statute. There are other procedures that you need to follow, but basically we don't really have vehicle parking, a park, an amusement, recreation, and we currently don't have an employee cafeteria either. But if you wanted to do any of those types of uses on county property, then you have to follow the procedure in that code section. And some counties have done that.
I had a question about that. I grew up down in Manteca, and they had that Field of Dreams thing down there. And they said it was going to take like 15 to 20 years to pay off. They paid it off in like 3 years. It was so successful. They're looking at building like an indoor surfing thing now.
And
a bunch of stuff. I mean, so I look at that.
Surfing?
Yeah, they have like a big pool where you can
Waves.
ride. They make waves and you can ride it. Yeah. So I was looking at that and I'm going, with all the water resources that we have, I mean, think about the airport property. I mean, I used to be a lifeguard at water slides when I was a kid in Antigua. I mean, you can put water slides out by the airport. You start at the top, go down, people could stay in Angels Camp or whatever. And I don't know. I mean, there's a ton of things I think that we could do.
One of the things Lori mentioned that I just cautioned the board is apples to apples, apples to oranges. Cities are a completely different area of law. So when you see something in a city, take pause, because they have a lot more things that they can do. They don't have all of these different statutes that restrict these types of uses. So these have been interpreted by the courts very strictly. Don't ask me why the legislature enacted them. They've been around for a long time. But
the amusement park, I mean, like, who owns Mickey's Grove? Is that San Joaquin County? I mean,
I don't know. I know it's in financial dire, but
it's expensive these days to have
but
animals.
there are opportunities available as long as you comply with the procedural requirements. So you need to be, fact specific and then look at which statute's going to work for you. I'll just do this one quickly since we briefly talked about it. And one thing that we use, the mitigation fee that we currently have for development, we actually use that as a mitigation measure under CEQA. Because CEQA requires you to mitigate the impacts of new development projects, both for their direct impact and for their indirect. We use the RIM fee to mitigate the indirect impact, because if we didn't have that, and a project had an indirect impact to a road, we would have to require the developer to build the entire road improvements and seek reimbursement as there's future development. So we use it actually to encourage development. And I believe the RIM fee is coming back to you in like 2 weeks, I think. So you'll have some more information on that.
It would be good to hear that information.
I'm looking forward to that.
Some of the big developers in Copperopolis tell you that this is a good thing. Development agreements are unique. They're a statutory creation that basically says the rules are out the door. When you impose a fee on new development, it has to be related to the impact, and you have to jump through procedural hoops. Development agreements are negotiated. So most often the developer wants to ensure that their entitlements are in place for 20 to 25 years, so the board can't come back later and adopt new fees. And so the county then can negotiate to determine, well, what is the developer going to get for the county in return for that, because it's a pretty big benefit. And that is an example of how we got the extension of Little John Road. That was through a development agreement with Saddle Creek. And there are development agreements in place for some of the other projects down there that require the developer basically to build a little bit more infrastructure than normally they would. I'm going to do this one kind of quick because this gets somewhat complicated, but as you all know, Prop 13 basically was put in place so that counties could not pick property taxes. It's set by statute and by the Constitution. Let me go through the history here. In 1984, the voters passed Proposition 62, which was in response to Prop 13. Cities and counties started imposing general taxes for things. They just said, "Hey, we're going to start taxing you, for anything as opposed to owning property." And so the voters passed Prop 16, which said that now you need a majority voter approval required for general taxes in only general law cities and counties. As a result of that, a lot of the special districts started adopting taxes to try to fund what they were doing. So in 1996, Prop 218 was passed. This now requires a majority vote for general taxes. That's money that's not taxes that aren't specified. And it applies to both general law and charter cities and counties. And it also required property owner approval for assessments and property-related fees and charges. In 2010, Prop 26 was adopted. That's not on a particular slide, but basically basically what it did was said that all fees that a county charges are considered a tax now that are required to have voter approval unless they fall within, I believe it's 13 exceptions. And the one that we most commonly use is that if we're providing a service and the fee is directly related to the service, it's not considered a tax. But anything else that the county decides to do, to charge for a service that isn't related to the service, it's considered a tax and requires voter approval. And the burden of proof is now on the county. It used to be on the person challenging it. But Prop 218, this has to do with assessments because normally the county does do assessments here in Calaveras. It's the special districts or the water agencies that do it. But if a property is being provided a special benefit, then you can go through the process of imposing a special assessment that's directly related to the benefit to that property. You give notice to the record property owner, and this is the procedure you've talked about before, where you have to have a public hearing, and if a majority of the property owners protest, then it requires voter approval if you want to move forward on the assessment. And that's a common way of financing infrastructure that benefits the properties that are going to be paying. This one comes up quite often, and this is, why can't we just contract out a department? And the reference I've heard several times is just cities somewhere back east. Unfortunately, in the state of California, counties have to live with two code sections, primarily Government Code 31,000. But what that says is the county can only contract out for special services, and there's a list in the statute of what those services are, but they're primarily expert engineering, services that a county employee does not have, special services. So you'll see whenever you get a professional service agreement, it will reference Government Code 31,000. If it's something that a county employee can provide, then you cannot contract with that person. And the Attorney General held down there that the county cannot contract with persons to provide the same level of services but at less expense than presently performed by employees. So unlike cities in other states, we don't have the ability to get rid of all of our employees and just have a manager because state law says we cannot do that. Cities are currently litigating this issue. There was a city down south on the verge of bankruptcy that decided we're gonna contract out. We're gonna get rid of a series of employees. They ran afoul of their union and their MOU, so they're litigating that. But the courts are also addressing, well, can cities actually contract out an entire department? So if they ever get past the MOU issue, which they're currently litigating, that will be the next issue. Their statute is slightly different, so it won't actually be binding on counties. But unfortunately, we can't contract out for employees for a lower rate, which we hear quite often. Next slide. I think that was it for me. That, like I said, that's just a snapshot of I have multiple code sections that say what you can or cannot do, so the key is to just ask when you want to know.
And this entire presentation is really just a snapshot. The board asked for some basic information about revenue opportunities. We wanted to bring that forth to you. I think the reason we talk more about expenses than revenues is because the board has more control over expenses. You have the ability to reduce expenses. In many cases, you don't have the ability to increase revenue without a vote of the people or some higher hurdle. Departments are looking at bringing forward fee increases where it's appropriate, and we're encouraging them to do that. The board may choose to strategically increase some fees. Again, there may be other overriding considerations that you don't think it's appropriate, but where we can, we're going to be bringing forward to you our recommendations for fee increases. You could also direct us to explore voter support for an increase in TOT, a local transaction or use tax. You could task us to looking at considering additional development impact fees. As we've discussed, I think the most appropriate time to do that would be once we have a general plan in place and understand the infrastructure needs and the impacts of future development. I think one of the reasons you wanted to talk, did you have a question?
I just wanted to pause just 1 second. Before we went into our closed session meeting earlier, the assemblyman was here with a group of people, and when he was walking out, I had an opportunity to talk with him, and we were talking about the empty jail that we'll have here once the new one opens. And Assemblyman Bigelow said down in Madera County, where he was a supervisor for 14 years, that when they had a conversion of the old jail, they used it as instead of tearing it down, it was a similar case. We have some asbestos and other things that are icky issues to deal with. But instead of tearing it down and paying $1 million to tear it down or whatever it's going to be, he said that they did something that passed muster for environmental or whatever, and they use it as a secured storage location. So for people who have volatile or, I don't know, confidential documents or something that need to be stored long term or, whatever, they were able to use that old space in that fashion and generated pretty good revenue for County Madera. So just something I thought I'd throw in there when we were talking about, the ability to do like a lease or, of our property.
Or even store our own records and get them out of paid storage space, which we are currently paying right now to store records.
But yeah.
So this is the last slide, and then happy to entertain any questions. I think balancing the budget is going to take a combination. It's going to take a combination of expenditure reductions and revenue increases. The revenue parts often take longer, so if indeed that is the desire of the board to look at revenue opportunities, we need to start thinking about, talking about, and actually taking steps to look at generating new revenue. Again, we are coming to you with some department-level fee studies and going to be recommending some increases in fees. The imposition of a development fee scheme or tax increases is a longer-term proposal. I think that we would need the support of the community, the business community, the citizenry, because it would have to go to a vote of the people. And departments are looking at other opportunities. We are going to be bringing forward our office some additional streamlining proposals to eliminate records and reduce our reliance on paid storage space, for instance. So we are asking departments to think very creatively about where they can save money and where they can generate money. All of that is going to be on the table, and look forward to the opportunity to discuss those options with you and work towards balancing our budget. And with that, happy to answer any questions.
Does the board have any questions or comments they'd like to make at this time?
Just in general, if we looked at a sales tax, is this something this board can do, or does it take an outside agency, group of people, whatever, to get it onto a ballot?
There's two ways to put initiatives on the ballot. One is for the board to take the steps to do that. Obviously, the voters, registered electors, can do that also. There are different procedural requirements, and depending on what the initiative is, sometimes if the voters do it, you don't have to comply with particular statutes like CEQA. If the board does it, you do. So it just depends on what it is and who's putting it on the ballot. If the voters are going to do it, they have to go through the elections department and follow all the procedures there. Do it. The board has less procedural asks to do it, but they may have more steps up front to take care of.
And then there is the issue of a public entity can educate and inform the voters, but once something is on the ballot, we cannot advocate for its passage, can't use county resources to
fund it or
to fund it.
Right.
All right. TOT, similar?
Similar.
Okay.
And if the TOT, I've been asked this question many times, if the TOT is going to be proposed for specific purposes, it now becomes a special tax and requires 2/3 vote as opposed to 51%.
So TOT says we just, i.e. general fund, that would just be a majority vote. But as soon as we say we want half of it to go here,
it's 2/3.
Okay. Is that the same with the sales tax?
No.
Okay.
Well, it could be, depending on. I guess it depends on if you're going to say it's going to be used like for transportation.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be 2/3.
Okay.
And I was just going to add on the TOT, my understanding is there was a proposal at some point in time to fund specific nonprofits, and that's not an appropriate use of TOT dollars. So that is not something that we would recommend to the board.
Okay.
For the board to sponsor. But
No,
if the community wanted to sponsor.
The money is county money. The proposal was for the tax to go to the nonprofits, but it's county money. We have to audit it. We have to make sure it gets spent the right way. We can't just have it collected and given to a nonprofit. So there were some issues with the proposal that they put together.
Well, I find this to be a very comprehensive review of the revenues. And, just very helpful, reinforced some things that I already knew and some new things. So I thank you. It's a very comprehensive report as to what I've seen so far, and it gives us a lot of opportunity to take a look at various revenue streams to see what is a good fit for us.
So city council was easier than board of supervisors?
So far.
Do any of the board members have any questions or comments at this time?
I do, but I just wait my turn.
Okay. Do any members of the public have any questions or comments on this?
House of Gallup Taxpayer Association. I'd like to compliment Lori on an excellent job. And everything seems to be clear. And also our county auditor are keeping track, but I don't have to worry about something not being spent right. But I notice you use the term revenue opportunities, but so much of this is talking about ways to increase taxes on the poor people. And so if we could approach this by not even thinking about raising taxes unless there's a nexus between the service, such as like the excellent suggestions from the sheriff on how to generate revenue, I think that's great. So I think the Tax Association would really encourage you to find ways to reduce expenses. So we've got, we're in the hole, I think, $7 million or $7.1 million, and it looks like we're even more in the hole considering the state part of it, and that looks like it's 11 million or something like that. So in order to handle in a responsible manner, we need to balance the budget. That means we need to not only spend what we make, but also have an amount of reserve aside. And I think it's supposed to be around 18%, or it's suggested to be that. So when we think about the amount of money we need, or the expenses we can tolerate, we have to think about the reserve as well as the part that we're in the hole, like the spending the previous year's surplus. And also, we need to ask the question, what's the downside of being a charter county? What's the downside of being a charter county? What's the problem with it? If being a charter county would mean that you'd be more accountable to the public and to the taxpayers, hey, this is where we want to go. If we are where you are now as state agents, helping the state to control us, well, that's not so good for the public or the taxpayer. We're better off having more home rule, local control, and if being a charter county is the way to go, maybe that's the first step. How long does it take to change to a charter county? Do you have an immediate answer to that? No.
Long time.
Long time. Well, we could probably do an initial study. I'm sure there's information available.
Is the Taxpayers Association willing to pay for the study? Become a charter county?
We're overtaxed. We don't have any money left. You have to stop taxing us so much. But if you need an outside organization rather than the county to do something like to initiate a referendum or something like that, like the Janice was talking about, Taxpayer Association would be happy to do that, provided it makes sense and it's responsible and good for the people. So in reviewing this, I think that if you could possibly, without too much expense, bring in some outside, remember the Grace Commission report the older people here probably remember that. The private outfits put together a report looking at federal government for ways they could save money without interfering with the purpose. They didn't address the purpose of anything. And they found all kinds of ways. But very little of it was actually applied because of the politicians didn't want to do that. And being loyal to the constituents was, or their lobbies, was more important than having good government. Well, perhaps we need to have advice from somebody that is not of the mindset that we have to keep everything the same. The departments the way they are. Part of the problem is probably the state is requiring that, but maybe a charter county can help with that. But no matter what, you need to find ways to reduce expenditures to get on an even keel for the next budget. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Peter Race, Channel N, Tea Party here. The charter company, and I believe I sent some people a little email. The best part about it just got gutted by the state, okay? And you know exactly what I'm talking about. And some of the supervisors got it also. If you're going to do some, I'm going to touch the Holy Grail, folks. Administration cost. I would love to know the ratio of lineman staff in the county, okay? I mean, I know every one of you guys working 24 hours a day, and I really appreciate it. By the way, thank you for the evening. It was really worth it. How about getting the lineman staff ratio? Can that be changed? I mean, some of those folks, the one at the desk, the one to do the work, you might give them a raise, but sooner or later discover they're going to be furloughed, okay? Another question, and you can probably answer me because I never looked into it. COG, it takes a nice big chunk out of the money that's coming to the county. Is that required to have a COG? I mean, I'm sure there's a couple of people here can negotiate what angels can. But the amount it costs to administer COG, you cannot get a couple of people from Angels Camp and a couple of you without breaking the Brown Act and have public hearing and decisions made. Take a look what the percentage COGs get and what are you getting for it. Public Works does most of the work, okay? And I'm not going to put in too much on the back because I got some other issues. Prop 13, I'm glad you mentioned it. But one of the sentences that I emphasize on, special tax, property-related, is a no-no when it's debt benefits available to the public at large. That's also in there, I believe. And folks, that's the Constitution. And I know some folks had to go to Napa Vine Country to find out Prop 13 is, okay? But there is a big plus. You inserted yourself a number of special districts. Unaccountable, unelected, you just assume that you're going to do it. And folks, that's going to end up costing you more than it's worth. I mean, you are all wonderful people, and I can appreciate you looking at your constituents in your district. But when you insert yourself in another district without invitation, accountability, and you throw everything to one of your staff or group, that doesn't set with me too good. Another thing I want to ask, if you propose a increase of fees and charges, the county passed that $1 to $3 a car for removing junk. I would love to know how much the counties get, how much it collected, the state collected, DMV collected, and how much the county ended up with. That would be nice. Those monkeys in Sacramento, they're not making your life any easier, and you're getting the brunt of the blame because you are here. They can afford to turn into a brick wall and talking to them. I have on occasion been up there. It's a waste of time. But please, don't prostitute your values, your character and everything on behalf of the state. That's why they exist, because there's somebody over there going to be cater to them at the expense of your taxpayers. You don't mention all the things that when you get propane, how much the state gets? When you pay your little cell phone, now maybe you brag about it, how many person getting a free cell phone, we paying for it. And I'm talking as a taxpayer. When you're getting gas and you want people to stay here, what is it, 47 cents a gallon of gas the state gets? But the question is, it's not your fault, but where that money goes to. So it's easy to say, well, we need more money. Yes, everybody needs more money. But I like to hear how you're going to cut back on expenses. And I don't envy your job. I'm going to give you a hard time about it. But I can understand the pickle you're in. And it's a pickle being brought onto you by the state. And the state is in a hole. Then it takes over 7 years to take care of a school entrance. And by the way, nobody talks about it. It was your planning department and your public works that approved that cluster thing over there of the traffic. You're dealing with a sloppy, crappy organization called Caltrans. And they exist because you cater. I know if you don't take care of it, somebody else will. But a question of efficiency, and if you want people to come over here, they're not going to come over here because it'll be more expensive or takes longer time to do things. You got to give something to them. They want to be up here. Thank you.
Just have a quick comment. A few years ago when we were going through...
Captain Macedo,
Captain Jim Macedo from the Sheriff's Office. A couple of years ago when we were going through the discussions on trying to figure out how to finance the new jail, the county retained a company that specialized, I'm trying not to name them here, in financial solutions for government. And that company, I have to tell you, in about the 3 to 6 hours I spent with them over about 3 to 6 months, I learned more. It was very similar to what was presented to you today. However, they really drilled down into the meat of your options, and they actually discussed what was likely to gain support, what was likely to not gain support. They were very, very, very informative and very educational for me. And I know Supervisor Callaway was on the board at the time. I don't think anybody else was. But it might be worth discussing some things or bringing them in to at least provide you with some options. They are a private company, and I'm sure they're fee-based, but and I know nobody wants to spend any money. But I believe in the long run they saved us a lot of money. There was some cost up front, but they were incredibly educational. I learned probably more about government finance and how things really work, not in a budget operational, but how to generate revenue for a government entity in about 3 to 6 hours with those folks, and I have in the 20 years I've been here.
And that's a good. I have their card, by the way.
Thank you.
All was not good time.
Are there any other public comments or questions? Okay. So, sir, you want to do a wrap on this? I think when the board, when staff departments come back, if they choose to with fee-based, it has to be a nexus.
Absolutely.
Okay, so they will be showing us the nexus.
They will be, and to get it through county council, we know that they're going to have to do an extremely good job of that.
It's not a nexus, though. That's for new development. It's a reasonable relationship. A little bit easier.
All right.
I did have a comment I was saving.
Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to make a request that perhaps we have a study session regarding issues that are brought up tonight. One of the things I've been working on with our former planning director, Rebecca, that's no longer with us, before she came to Calaveras a number of years ago, she worked for the city of Clayton. And what they did there was they had they approved a peak power plant there, which will be, the construction supposed to start next year. And basically what they need is, especially in the power grid right now with San Onofre, nuclear shutting down, other things like that, they have a need to increase what they call peak power into the grid. So, and it needs to be on demand. I mean, solar's great, wind's great, those type of things, traditional. But when you're looking at a surge, a grid, when you have a brownout or a blackout, heaven forbid, which we've gone through before, they want these peak powered plants. It's very advantageous for them. So what they did was the city of Clayton over there was a piece of industrial property, and there's an outfit out of Danville in the East Bay they're basically doing a build to suit. So they've signed a contract with PG&E. They say we're going to build this peak power plant. It's going to take natural gas and create electricity to put into the grid. It's going to be X amount of dollars, and when we're done finished with the building of it, then PG&E will buy it for an agreed upon amount and start operation. Well, the three things that you need for that, and I've had a gentleman out here from Colorado to look at the site in Valley Springs, and the three things that he said that you need to have a successful program like that is you need a natural gas pipeline with a diameter of 60 inches or larger, which we do from the old cement plant. It runs right through Valley Springs. You need high power lines to put the electricity back into the grid. We have that over there. You also need reclaimed water, which we could get from Valley Springs Public Utility District because they need to upgrade and relocate their existing facility that's at max capacity right now. So with those three things available to us, we could go after a project like that, and it's absolutely a viable alternative. Now, just to give you an idea of the implications for finances on that.
Mr. Spellman, maybe we can talk about this.
I got 30 seconds. I'll wrap it up. I promise.
Thank you.
I don't want to keep it to bedtime right now.
Thanks.
You can look it up online if you just Google it. City of Clayton peak power plant. You'll find it, and they've got a whole prospectus on how much it costs and how much tax revenue is going to be generated. This is a $500 million project. Just from the increased property taxes alone, based on the capital asset improvement of that property, the City of Clayton will receive approximately somewhere between $4.9 to $5.5 million a year because of that capital asset improvement. So we've got a property out on Paloma Road between Valley Springs and Paloma that used to belong to the cement plant. The guy that owns it is not, he's amenable to the idea of having a peak power plant there. I think the Board of Supervisors needs to have a study session to talk about what we can do to help facilitate that happening. Because, nobody wants to have the way of our rural life changed here in Valley Springs. We have a piece of property that used to function as a cement plant. We've got the infrastructure in place, the high power lines, the gas lines. So I'd like to have a study session to talk about that.
I think my recommendation would be if there's somebody that's interested, that they submit a proposal. So, I hear what you're saying. I work for a utility. I understand all that.
Well, in today's world, what they want to see is they don't want to waste their time making proposals on a place they don't think they're going to get significant pushback.
Well,
if you go and say, we had a study session, the Board of Supervisors was unanimously in favor of supporting a peak energy project in our county, that would be the catalyst.
We don't even do that on a small subdivision, much less some. I don't think it's not that we're not. Somebody has to submit something.
Why wait for them to submit? We want to show that we're willing to open for business.
Well,
it's $5 million a year revenue, potentially.
No different than any business. I think we need to treat them all the same.
Well, I'm asking for a study session.
We are treating them all the same. And it doesn't seem to be working. So I would go for anything that could help us move forward a little bit or make it easier for these businesses to come in here.
If you're talking about multi-million, these people have been around the block. They having 5 supervisors who don't know their elbow from a hot rock about transmission lines and going into and having to have a substation and all of that. I'm sure when they went to wherever, Clayton or where Rebecca used to work, there was a proposal of some kind that was submitted. It wasn't the city council saying, oh yes, we'd like you to come. That's...
I want you to know that there's a gentleman named Gene Tibbs. Yeah, I want you to know that one of the gentlemen I've been working with is a guy, I'll name him by name, His name is
Well,
Dean
that's
Tibbs.
fine.
He has a PhD in cost-benefit analysis from UC. And he was a 30-year employee of PG&E, and that's exactly what he did for a living. And he's been
I'll make a recommendation.
He says it's valid.
I'll make a recommendation that aren't we going to have a priority board meeting so we can throw that in the mix of all the other ideas that we've come up with? Because we tend to come up with one that's pretty big that we need to do a study session on every meeting.
Right.
So we need to go over and decide which one, what order we want to do it.
Throw it in with those. I mean, I basically explained that.
Well, we're moving off the agenda topic. Is that, as long as you have the floor, do you want to discuss anything else for board correspondence or meetings you're going to?
I just want to make a motion, and I accept Chris's idea of putting it in together with some of those other things that we want to talk about.
I don't know if it requires a motion, but I certainly would be willing to put it on the list with the other kinds of things that we've been talking about, see where it falls out in the priority area.
I mean, we draft letters to people all the time. What does it hurt to draft a letter that says we'd be supportive of you building $500 million peak power plant?
I can give you lots of reasons. Do you want it?
Well, I think we should talk about it at our priority meeting, because, I mean, that's what
You
that's
just
for.
even want it on the list to look at the priorities?
Well, yeah, I mean, we got two people that want to talk about it.
It's a 4-to-1.
Sure.
Okay,
You don't want to do it,
Mr.
Marita?
Spellman, no, that isn't how I would. Just because you have a lot of money doesn't mean you should be treated any different than people that don't have a lot
They're
of
going to
money.
increase
and want
$5 million
much.
into our general fund.
No, we don't know. Mr. Spellman, do you want to give your report, please?
I'll pass. I'm okay.
Okay. Mr.
Apparently I've
Edson?
said enough. I'll pass.
Mr. Ray?
On the review of correspondence, is that where we're at now?
That's where we are.
Sure. So this week I did office hours in Moke Hill, West Point, Mountain Ranch. Issues that come up there, typical code compliance, special district issues, starting to get those worked out in West Point. And Ron Mobley, I usually talk to him over in Mountain Ranch quite a bit, and talking about cell coverage, so that's a hot topic here. Attended the Central Sierra Child Care Council meeting. I spoke to the Mountain Oaks class that was here earlier today, as well as Edson and Spellman. I had met with Assembly Bigelow this afternoon here at the County Council's conference room regarding trying to get funding for a railroad flat school. I had a good group of people with me, and I really appreciate the time that Mr. Bigelow gave to us to discuss that funding potential. So hopefully we'll continue to move that forward. Coming up here, I have the next week or so, First Five meeting. I'll be speaking at the Veterans Day the ceremonies in West Point at the West Point Cemetery. I have the Mental Health Board meeting and Moke Hill Vets Memorial meeting coming up here. I think the first week in November. So that's it for me.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, just want to report, last Thursday evening we had a wagon trail open house. I thought it was very well attended, a good representation of property owners along the way and interested community members. It was a nice representation too of the City of Angels City Council being present. And overall, just a good update as to where we are in the process. Following that, there's a COG meeting next Wednesday evening here in the board chambers, discussing Wagon Trail plus some other kinds of projects. Met with the Angels Murphy's Rotary Club. Great opportunity to discuss the general plan and encouraging people to stay proactive in that process and keep in touch. Waiting for the next process of the general plan when we have maybe draft number 3 map out for some kind of review in the near future. Fish and Game Commission meeting was last Wednesday. Janice was kind enough to put us on her priority list, you might say, as commissions and such, and taking a look at our ordinance and resolutions and that sort of thing. So we'll have a new ordinance coming back to this board here by the end of the year, which really focuses on how the commission was established and kind of the function, the role of the commission, redefining the roles. And if that is supported by this board, the Fish and Game Commission will then be meeting at the first of the year to kind of fine-tune their internal operation, like where to meet, how often to meet, and this kind of thing. So overall, a good meeting, and I think it really, it just really gave commissioners a little bit broader view of their direction. Met with the AT&T representative today. AT&T now has a local representative representing Calaveras County, and I know she's kind of going around introducing herself to everybody. And it was a nice to see this particular corporation establishing a governmental affairs person for Calaveras County. So I think it'll be a good support, and gave that information on to Lori in the office there. I will also be in the Veterans Day Parade for Copperopolis. Their actual parade is on a Monday, so I'm looking forward to that particular opportunity. And that's all I have.
Okay. I will be in Sacramento tomorrow for the state water plan. I have a broadband meeting this week. I'm really glad AT&T's here. They made it quite clear they're not going to invest in rural counties because there's no return on investment, so I'll be interested to see what I know I saw. But we're fine with that. So the broadband, I have, if it's past National Scenic Highway meeting, I will be at the COG meeting representing the byway and make sure that the COG board approves this project. So, I have an Area 12 Agency on Aging meeting, a solid waste task force. I too will be participating in the Vets Memorial event in Murphy's and the Vets dinner that night. We had the Night of the Wagon Trail meeting. We had a meeting the developer put the meeting together. I asked him if he would, and he did, on a proposed RV storage on Highway 4, just east of Forest Meadows. So the Northwood people that are on the north side of the highway in the Forest Meadows community was there, and he went over the project. It was unofficial. I was there. The planning commissioner was there. But we did encourage people to comment to the planning department or the planning commission that their comments that night were just to give the developer a feel of what the community's concerns were and for the developer to understand what the community's concerns were. I do have an item I somewhat need some direction or intent from the board. As you know, Calaveras County, the jail, of course, receive public power, and it's Calaveras Public Power Agency. And we're going into determining what the rate schedule will be for the jail and the courts, the jail and the sheriff's office. The jail and sheriff's office will be served, I believe, off the same meter. There is two rate structures, secondary and primary. But to get the primary, which is significantly less than what the secondary is, we have to pay cost of ownership. And we pay that either yearly or we can pay it up front. And the payback period we've estimated is 13 years. And that's,
who do we pay that to?
We pay that to PG&E. And the rate structure at the moment, if we were in full operation, let's say at the jail, it doesn't even matter if we're in full operation or half operation, it's 0.033 cents a kilowatt hour. And if we're on the primary, it's 0.018. The cost of ownership for the jail and sheriff's office is $81,300 and change. For the courts, it's $32,000. The courts have agreed to pay the cost of ownership charge, which is a benefit to the county because we are going to be paying their CPPA bill. And considering the facility is going to be there for 30, 40 years, I think it's a good investment because rates can go up and down, but the difference between primary and secondary will change. So we estimated,
Shouldn't it be there more than 30 years?
Oh, yeah, 50 years, I'm sure. But, I mean, and the longer out you go, the more it is you're going to save. So we can either pay to get the primary, which I'm recommending we do, $6,200 a year in perpetuity, or we can pay $82,000 upfront, similar to what the courts are going to do. Theirs is $32,000 to get the primary, and it will have to come back to the board because when the bill comes, because it would be out of contingency. But we have to write a letter of our intent of what we want to do, what rate structure we want to PG&E by the November 1st. So I guess I'm asking you is...
You've asked us to make a decision.
No, what I'm asking you is what our intent is. The intent would be, my feeling is that we pay the $82,000 up front because it's going to pay us that multi-fold if we go down the road, because we want primary power, because the rate is so much different. For example, the annual cost, and this is to CPPA, if we have secondary power, the annual cost is about $102,000 a year. If we have primary, the bill will be about $61,500. So there's a significant difference to go primary and secondary, which sort of gets back to what Darren's saying. So I understand we are not going to commit tonight to the money because that has to come to the board and it would be a 4/5 vote. The bill would not be due until, I think, February, but this just sort of came up from our last meeting, and I am just wondering if the board would kind of commit to the intent of doing this.
Is the $81,000 a one-time fee?
One time.
Okay.
Or $6,200 a year in perpetuity, i.e. 50 years or 40, however long we have it. So that's...
There are other people that benefit from our relationship.
Oh, lots.
Yeah. So my question is, do those people ride on our coattails?
No.
Or do they contribute to that fee?
No. This is just for the jail and sheriff's office. The $32,000 that the courts are paying is just for the meter to have primary service at the courts.
So this is different than the current.
That's the rate, the cents per kilowatt hour applies to all the CPPA customers.
But only until we've gone to this expansion of a Tier 1, Tier 2 to allow other people to...
Tier 2 has nothing to do with this. This is only Tier 1.
No, but before there wasn't any tier at all. It was just you were in or you weren't.
That's right. This is for forget Tier 2. This is for everybody that's in. For example, if you have someone like CCWD who's going to be in a location where it's a lot of usage, a high usage factor, which is the jail and the sheriff's office will be and the courts will be, then if you can have primary rate structure, it's so much cheaper than a secondary rate structure.
There's something I'd like to discuss in terms of that. There have been people that have tried, and Bob Dean, who's an elected member of the CCWD board, has come before this board on multiple occasions asking for a possible caveat to extend cheaper service to people who are economically challenged. And that was not...
That's going to be part of our priority.
That's a separate issue from that.
Well, I know, but we're talking about CCWD benefiting from our CPPA arrangement.
They benefit.
I know they do. Correct. What I'm asking is there any possibility, and this may be a legal question, where we could structure as part of the CPPA arrangement so that we could use that money to extend or that somehow the collection of that money could somehow have a caveat to extend, like if you're PG&E.
You mean if you want to give some of the CPPA money to in need, like the REACH program does?
Like the CARE program for PG&E or whatever.
That's the REACH program.
CCWD is saying they can't legally do that.
They cannot.
So I'm looking at
direct the
exactly.
That's a good idea.
Exactly.
Well, that's a separate issue, and I'm more than happy to bring it up with.
Because they've
but
been
that
down
is
and trying to find a way.
But that is taxpayer supported, because that is part of the New Maloney's project.
Yeah, but I'm talking about it coming from the revenue source of CCWD paying to be a part of that, and they're participating in the program. That could be like a...
Are you asking that since CCWD, that's a separate issue, Mr. Spelman. If you want CCWD, they're saying they cannot pay money like the REACH program. If you're asking if CPPA could have a program,
can you attach
they
a
are
rider?
not.
No, the transfer of the money, does the money go from, is there any way that it comes through the county?
No. No.
Or the power comes through the county?
No.
That's what you were going to...
I think there's a...
Yeah.
That's a separate, all I'm asking is, do you want cheaper bill on the long run than...
Well, right now we don't pay anything to belong to any organization as far as
we're not paying to belong
No, I mean
to
like
it.
this tier 1 or whatever, we don't pay anything. So I'm still kind of wondering why we even have to deal with this.
Because we're going to be setting a meter and charging a rate that PG&E has to do a filing on. And they want the intent of the county to say, do you want 1 cent a kilowatt hour, or do you want to pay 3 cents a kilowatt hour? And that's just this year. That can change. If you want the cheaper rate in perpetuity, then you have to pay them $6,200 a year forever, or $82,000 up front. In the court's case, they are going to pay the $32,000 up front to get the cheaper power.
Well, I understand
the cheaper rate.
I understand why they would want to do that, because they've been receiving the cheaper power at our rate because they're on our campus, and they should have got it.
Mr. Spellman, yes, they are, because they were a county court.
No,
they
it's
were
a state
not.
court.
No, now it's a state court.
Yeah, now it is.
But
For a long time.
to cut to the chase, Calaveras County is going to be paying the utility bill for the courts. So either Calaveras County, for the courts, we're going to be paying the lower rate because the courts have agreed to pay the cost of ownership charge. I mean, I'm not saying I like it. I'm just saying if you agree to the intent of it, then we will tell them we agree to the intent.
I would agree to the intent of it, yes.
Yes, go for it.
The intent is to save money in the long run, of course.
Yes. So I will get, when it comes actually time, before then, I will get you the detailed information. But it's just if we're willing to
we got through that.
82,000. Okay. I'm sorry I wasn't clear.
Are we done?
Okay, I'm done. Yes.
I thought you already passed.
Well, I did, but I thought of something. So I just want to mention a couple of things. I went with Marita up to visit Susie's restaurant up in Arnold. Had lunch there. Very good place to go. They're economically strapped, as you can imagine, in Arnold. And so, but they are a bright spot there. So that was, we discussed, we traded
restaurant
horror stories, actually, and try to, to help us become more efficient in our businesses. So I appreciate it. I had a great lunch there, and lunch. Tipped the waitress real good, so I think,
So he's welcome back.
Yeah. And I also went to the Veterans Hall last Wednesday. It was last Wednesday. And spent a couple hours helping them putting up some of the infrastructure inside the building. They need some volunteers to help with that. So I am committing a couple hours every Wednesday to do that. It was fun. I had a good time with the guys that were there. It was a blast. I'm looking forward to the FFA dinner this Saturday night. Are you going to be there, Mike? Good, good. I'm going to try to outbid you on one of those cakes again. And so I don't know if they sold out or not, but if they haven't, please give it a try. And I also went to the school board meeting last week. It was a good meeting. They talked about after-school program. People were there, and they are in dire straits for to try to find a way to make an after-school program work. It's not necessarily something that the schools district should be not supporting. They should support it, but paying for it. There's many different ways to help out. I like to do a fundraiser, and it'd have to be quick. I'd like to do a fundraiser for them. I'd be happy to be a part of that. The after-school program, when I was raising my 3 kids as a single father, was my savior. That allowed me to stay working and stay off of welfare. So it's pretty important to have our kids in a structured environment after school, so that they can learn how to be really good students during school. That's about it for now. I think I'm ready to leave.
Mr. Reyes, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yes, ma'am. I'd just like to make a compliment. I kind of resent there was a statement made by the chair concerning the ability and mental capacity of the supervisors to deal with setting out the business proposal. I think my new sets of supervisors quite have the capability to look at some other business options. If I'm wrong, I don't know how this board has the capacity to do general planning. So it's either, I believe the supervisors do have the capability and should explore and get rid of the ideology to deter all new businesses. I want to compliment you folks. And I think you do have the mental capacity, regardless how much hard time I might give you. But it's a step in the right direction. And do explore. Not necessarily going to be successful, but I'd like to see you try. Thank you.
Get that down, Diane? It was a compliment.
Take it as a compliment.
A 4-to-1 compliment. Ms. Norton, did you have anything?
The only thing I will say is that I was remiss. I should have thanked Rebecca Counts, Auditor Controller, for being here tonight and helping us with this presentation. She's been staying late, I know, working on the audit, so I appreciate it. Zachariah, of course, from my office, and Janice.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Just to let you know, the introduction of the Fish and Game Ordinance will be on the 26th of November. It requires 2 meetings, and the next step there will be some changes to the Library Commission Ordinance that Maury's working on, and Brian is working with the DAAC over whether they want to continue or not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Everett, do you have anything? Okay, this meeting's adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.